Today we're talking about how to be a good player, and we're kind of switching stuff around a little bit this week because there was a big storm in the Midwest and it knocked out a bunch of people's power. I hope everyone, if anyone's listening and was affected, I hope you're okay. I hope you recover all right. But it did affect Mr. Shady and myself. In fact, I only just got electricity and internet back. And so today I know Table 13 is usually like a DM class or a DM kind of stream, but today we're going to kind of bring it down to the player level a little bit. So me as a forever DM is going to kind of learn from these guys as people that have been players many, many, many more hours than I have ever been a player in any kind of role-playing game. And kind of go through, what things that they do or things that they've like experienced as being players, and what have they seen or experienced that have like led them to bring things to the table that have increased the enjoyment of other people. Because that's really what we want to talk about. We don't necessarily today want to talk about like what other people do. We want to talk about what we do as players to bring enjoyment to the table.
How we try to be good players.
Right,
like what
exactly.
that means, kind of.
Judging ourselves as players rather than other people as players. Because I do think that, and let me tell you, before we get into what we have planned, a little aside, I know I'm a terrible player. I'm a very bad player. I have murder hobo tendencies. I have tendencies of kind of showboating a little bit or trying to direct role play towards my character because I keep on talking, and it's all because I'm a DM, and as a DM I'm usually the one doing all the talking. I like talking, and as a player I kind of got to shut the fuck up sometimes, and that's hard for a DM like me. So I am excited to learn some stuff from you guys tonight about habits that I could learn from myself.
So you're saying
Yeah.
that DMs are murder hobos? That's interesting.
Well, I mean, I know I have a lot of not great tendencies that folks can learn to not engage in that will help them be better players.
This is a perspective episode where we tell you how to not be a shit player.
Right, yeah.
Which is the same thing as telling you how to be a good player. I feel
Right.
like
Say, like,
that's right.
avoid these things. They're bad.
This, I know it sucks.
Right, yeah.
So, I guess we could start, I suppose, with just like from like character creation and stuff like that. That's like a decent like starting point anyway, I guess. Like how do you guys go about your like making a character in a way, like what's the process that you guys go through for that? Start with with John 2, since he's on top.
Good. Because I'm up here. So character creation is probably my favorite aspect of D&D. I've always liked writing, so it's become the central part of D&D in my mind. And then falling into that character is basically where it all kind of comes together. That's over the course of the game, you're going, okay, I would make this decision, or I would say this thing, or this is how I'd react to something. And that's all based off that preliminary, I'm making this character to be like this. So for me, it kind of starts with just an attitude, an idea, an ideology. So for Quip, my current character, check us out.
Gods of Aether, yeah.
Gods of Aether, we stream on
Mondays.
I forgot when we stream. For Quip, I wanted to go for something cowardly. I wanted cowardice. I wanted to be someone who wasn't really in the limelight, but their cowardice and their fear kind of brought a little bit of that limelight to them. And I think that's part of the balancing act you have to play as a player. It kind of all comes down to, is this character, kind of in marketing terms, sellable? Is someone going to take this character and see it and go, okay, it's believable and that's attainable. That's something I can strive to do something like that for my own character. And that's kind of the way I think about it. Just focusing on attitude, and then everything else kind of comes into play. You're like, okay, what's cowardly? Tiny guy. He's probably scared of stuff. He doesn't like stuff. So it all comes from there. And that's my viewpoint.
Let's go around the clock there, Bags, John 1.
Catch onto a core idea and move out from there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. The so yeah, it's a similar kind of concept basically. It sounds like maybe you're more on a little more of like a mechanical bent for your concepts sometimes, but there's still like the when we're talking about anti-tropes, it's you work from sort of the same idea. It's a narrative kind of core ideal, and then sort of build out from there. It sounded like.
The table, you know.
That's the hardest part too. If you go,
Yeah.
okay, I want to play a ranger. What the fuck does my ranger act like?
Yeah.
It kind
Right.
of like sullies it, I feel. And whenever I try to do that, it never works out for me in a way that makes my character enjoyable. It hits those synapses in your brain.
For sure. No, as that's my roots in this. I definitely tend toward like more of that kind of thing sometimes. I would say I usually try to have a strong narrative concept of some variety behind it, but I often will just say, "Oh, I haven't made a barbarian like ever or something." You know, I'm gonna make a barbarian like with Clem, and then I will try and find a way to make that interesting. But for me, the classes tend to just be like, you know, it's a set of mechanical actions that you can take. The rest of it is just dressing, so you can kind of dress up, you know, somebody who hits stuff and then gets tougher occasionally when he's in the middle of a fight in a bunch of different ways. So I try to like look at it as okay, this is how I want to deal with combat, but then like the actual character to me is something different that usually will come from something sort of like, oh, I just want a concept that, like, yeah, Clem was basically like, oh yeah, we talked about bog bears and I was pretty happy with that idea. That was funny. So I was like, let's roll with that. But so I do think I find myself in a position where I'll start with mechanics occasionally as I'm a rules lawyer at heart, but I do, I try to back it up with some details and stuff. Leg.
Um, well, since I've only really made 2 characters in my entirety of my role playing experience,
Really?
yeah. Um, the first one being not Stanley, who was a halfling barbarian rogue. He was a dex rogue. Brett let me use dexterity instead of strength while raging, so I got into the extra damage while raging as long as I used dex-based weapons.
That's awesome.
And his name was not Stanley. Knott Stanley, because I first was like, I'm gonna name my guy Stanley, and Brett was like, you're not naming him Stanley. And so I was like, you're right, I'm naming him not Stanley.
Kind of player Kyron is, yeah.
Right, yeah. See, that's what your guys through this conversation, you guys are gonna be like, oh, this is why you're if you're a forever DM, because I know I'm not a
No one will
good
have you as a
player. Well, I mean, but no, like that's a
true.
people
It's in my
like me
game,
as
one of my
player.
games.
It's like I'm not, I'm not that bad, but I know I don't have as much fun as I do as a DM, and
We gotta get you in a game.
I try to make it more fun for myself, and it's usually at the expense of other people. And then we have Basil Gregory Longtallow, who is he's a kind of a murder hobo fire wizard turtle.
Yep.
He's
I call him
he's an old
Gamera all the time.
yeah
He's a turtle.
yeah he's a
Yeah.
turtle.
Awesome.
And
It's a
he's
Redwall themed
yeah.
world that we kind of rebuilt Turtle a bit. Shady and I. There's a whole slew of those.
He's really cool, yeah. But
Anthropomorphic animals.
so I built both of those characters basically, I guess for not Stanley, it was just what kind of funny stuff can I get away with mechanically, and then make a rough character out of it. He turned out to be really, because then like, my favorite part about characters is like bringing a personality to them, like I do with the NPCs that I run, but that takes a few sessions. And so usually when I build a character, it's just like, yeah. Oh yeah, I did have the beaver from the Rusty Nail, but I
Yeah, I was gonna
only
say
played
you've had
him for a
a
session.
couple other
Yeah,
characters,
but
but
like
few
like
that have lasted more than a
yeah,
session.
yeah.
I believe that.
And I don't even remember why or what those characters consisted of, so I can't really answer the question of how I build a character. I can only remember two, and they're only two that I've played longer than a few months. And so, yeah, and again, it's just basically it just comes off of the DMing stuff. What have I wanted to play? What have I seen other people play and then been like, "Oh, that's cool, but I bet I could do more with that." Or like, "Oh, that's cool, but I want to break it somehow." And yeah, so that's where those two characters came from.
Fair enough.
I think it kind of like speaks to 5th edition because that's what I normally play. That's my main D&D game type. And I think it speaks to the level that the skills are intrinsically tied to lore almost.
Right.
I think it makes it easier almost to just decide I'm going to be a barbarian. And then you read your skills and you go, "Oh, I can work with this." There's something there. There's a seed planted when you read those abilities, which is
Right.
probably the main thing I like about 5th edition is that it's very conducive to creating a character and coming up with a concept that works for you in your head. And even if you just want to go, I need a character in about 15 minutes. I'm a lazy piece of shit. Breach. I'm gonna make et cetera, et cetera.
A samurai fighter.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a samurai fighter, and your whole backstory is already written for you.
I'm not even gonna crack a book open.
Someone killed your father. You have to kill them.
Yeah.
And now we're on what, year 2 of that character?
I was gonna say
yeah.
characters in the podcast.
Yep.
So,
There's a lot of flavor
But-
built into the abilities, like cooked in.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would say that's something I try to do to keep flexible with that stuff is or to make it a unique concept is to look at how those can be kind of turned on their head or construed in a different way. Like Reggie was like sort of he was a sorcerer on paper, but I like to think of it as he was sort of just like a psychic kind of thing. Like he was like Professor X kind of shit. Which was just it's basically the same thing, but it's slightly a different take on sorcerer.
Yeah.
The like mechanic package or whatever, and that's similar to what John's talking about with you take this sort of narrative anti-tropes and turn that into a concept as well. So I think that's so like trying to stay creative. It seems like is a helpful way to get involved.
Yeah. How do you guys approach voices?
I was gonna ask that next.
Yeah, like how do you approach? Because every single one of my characters has to have a voice that I play.
Now I feel
Same.
that way as well.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Do the same. Start at the top here, John. Too. How do you go about voices?
I have a handful of voices that I like, and then I work from there. So anything gruff is the same gruff voice. Anything anything else is Hispanic.
God
Those are
only
the-
made 6 voices.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
Those
Yeah,
are the two places I pull from. I go, all right, am I a Casanova who has a Spanish accent? Or do I sound like an orc gargling nails? It's down to that. I feel like I can, I like Scottish accents, but I feel like I could never pull it off enough to be warranted in playing a dwarf as much as my forever DM Kyle West has told me to play every single game we've ever played for the past 6 years.
Anybody can have a Scot. It doesn't have
Anyone.
to be a dwarf.
A bit of that accent. And it's
Yeah.
horrible and it sucks, but it's fun.
It's so
Yeah.
that's a tough one to get your mouth.
I wouldn't feel comfortable in my skin unless I was just completely shit-faced the entire session. And there are definitely those games. There's your next topic.
yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. John, what? I guess unless you had more to add. Sorry.
No, I feel like there's nothing wrong with using your own voice at the same time. I don't want
Yeah.
people to think that they have to put a voice on to fit a character niche or to fit an ideal that they're trying to go for. At the end of the day, it's more what you say than how you say it.
Right.
So, yeah, there's my small fatherly advice for the day.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Wow, John.
As a rule, you know.
Yeah.
That's my problem because
Yep.
really all I can do is accents. But I just try like I don't know. My 2 cents on that is that if there's a lot that comes with that, that comes with stereotypes and things like that, that is more than just the way people talk.
Right.
And if all you're doing is representing a regional dialect thing, then I think you're good. It's when, all the other baggage starts to come with that you get yourself into a place where
Right.
people are likely to be, but that's, me as a Midwestern English speaking, white boy. So
Yeah. Different voices too.
that has helped me a ton too. Yeah. Just like, talking to the mic in front of my face and the fact, and the void of the internet has always made it a lot easier for me to, kind of just not worry about looking or sounding like an idiot or looking like an idiot while I'm sitting there trying to do whatever, and that helps. The other thing I do is I will find some like Netflix series or whatever that has a voice like what I'm trying to replicate and just like listen to it way too much and
Same
just sit
thing.
there and keep reciting words that they say. Like I'll usually have like a starting sentence for each like trying, accent or word, way of speaking, whatever. And get that down and then start to like branch out and like, I'm sure all my neighbors think I'm an insane person, but
Oh God. Yeah.
so
Mine
it
too.
goes,
Yeah, I
Can't
found
win
like
them
a
all.
Scottish dialect coach on YouTube, and I watched that.
Yep.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm ready to play a dwarf who can only say at least 15 words that I learned from this video. Everything else is going to sound like garbled garbage.
Like
Oh man.
my wife.
Yep.
Literally,
My wife
great.
is like, "You're gonna wake up a winter soldier." You know.
It's true.
Activated.
That's how it happens.
When you
Yeah.
get activated, you're fucked.
Yeah.
I'm just
right.
gonna say bocce ball, and you're gonna must kill some prime ministers. I don't know.
So,
Good
as
balls.
from the DM perspective, seeing like voices, I think are very important in terms of a getting into the skin of your character. And so I think
For
that
me, I
you
agree.
guys have brought like very good points. Well, I like literally it's I think that it helps with immersion, and it doesn't have to be
I,
even like a voice that's like super creative. It just has to be different from your own
I think
voice in some
speaking
way.
in first person is really important to getting
Yes,
into the mindset of role playing. Getting a different voice from your normal voice is less critical. I think
I
it helps a
agree.
ton if you want to
Yeah.
establish a personality, like an actual, entity in your
And
in
it
your
also
mind. You don't want
really
another
helps
person
in
living in your
terms of like
brain.
streamlining role playing, because if I'm like, like I'm gonna go up and get a drink of water, and people are like, oh, are you saying that, if I don't have a character
Right.
voice, people are like, are you gonna, or like, are we pausing or are we continuing? But if I'm like,
Mm.
I'm gonna go up and get a drink of water, and you're like, oh, okay, or well,
Yeah,
then I'm
like
gonna do
clearly
the,
that was in
it just
character. Clearly
right.
it
I don't
wasn't.
have to be like, okay, I am in character now. Can I have a drink?
Mm-hmm.
It's you just jump right into the voice, and you're that like, the your table is like, oh, they are now this person. And that's kind of how I approach so I've done DMing for new tables, like one shot for people that are very little like interaction with D&D. I do tell them that I'm going to use voices, and it might be a little awkward for you. And you don't have to use a voice to me, but I am going to do it so that you know when I am like acting as a character and when I'm not. Because
Yeah.
there are some times where I'm like a dick. I'm just like, like, nope, fuck you. It's just like I'm not actually saying that, guys. Like
Right, that's not me.
I'm
Like, there's
being
a
a character.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
and for first time role players, it's kind of important. I think that that's something that as a player, I've also kind of seen is that if I don't have a voice for my character, I have a harder time signaling to people that I'm role playing or when I'm role playing.
Sure.
But if I have a
Yeah.
good voice, then it's automatic. I don't have to think about it. I just have to talk. And
These characters.
Yeah, I want to do it like Critical Role or whoever is like there are so many awesome like teams of people putting
Yeah.
together like really great dramatic production kind of quality entertainment, and then that is what draws people to the hobby sometimes rather than
Mhm.
finding it in a bookstore or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Approaching it as a tabletop.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's honestly upped the production value of every table that people
Yeah,
are getting
Right.
into. People are like, I want to be like Vaxildan from Critical Role. I want to sound like my character. I want to be my character. And then they're coming to the table with a fucking wizard hat and a book, and you're like, shit, this guy
All
gets
right.
this.
Cool.
Yeah, this guy
Like,
gets
let's do
it.
this.
Yeah.
All right.
Those caricatures back in the day of nerds sitting in a basement with like wizard hats and like
Right.
full on medieval helmets on. They got it. There was something.
I think that's the thing is,
Yeah.
it happens very quickly when one person is willing to be, like do like ridiculous grot voice or something like,
I love it.
and then somebody, it makes it easier for anybody else to sort of just like, oh, well, they don't care that they sound like an idiot. We've been laughing at them for 3 sessions. I guess I can, manage like, and so and I think that's part of it. And eventually it doesn't, if you start with small modulations on your normal voice, it doesn't feel as weird. And then you can get
Right.
kind of stretching from there.
So, moving off of
Yeah.
voices a little bit, because we have maybe beaten this into the ground a bit. So background while building characters. How important or relevant do you think your background is in terms of like maintaining your interest in a character? For me, it's not at all. My characters that I come up with, I like leaving their backstories as open as possible because I like sometimes messaging the DM under the table and being like, "Hey, this would be a good time for my character to be connected to this character because it'd be really, really, really neat. You should do this." And so I don't like nailing down a backstory for my character more than where I'm from and what I've done and like why I am the way I am, and then leaving the rest kind of open. What about you, John?
You gotta be more specific.
Right?
2.
Um,
Going around the circle. 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock. John, 12 o'clock.
On the streets. It's pretty important to me. I take it very, very seriously. When I'm writing a backstory, it always comes down to what's not only going to make this character much cooler for me, what's gonna bring my character from just another dude who's adventuring because hey, bitches and money are pretty nice, to okay, this dude has a reason to be here and it needs to bring me in. I've dropped characters entirely, even though I liked the character. I didn't have a good backstory. And I know you could change it, you could do whatever, but to me, I feel like it sullies the experience when you don't have that keen understanding of where your character comes from, what he's doing, and why. I really need that to actually roleplay it well.
Interesting. Interesting. So, kind of going along off that, Oh, sorry, Eric. I don't want to
go for it.
Yeah. So kind of like along with the backstories and stuff. Like, how much do you guys want or ideally spend making sure your character fits well within the DM's world? Because as a DM, there is an enormous amount of difference between a player that is like, I made a human fighter, he's just from a little city outside, to a person who's like, hey, can I see your world map? Who's the king? What's the court look like? I have been grilled sometimes for lore in order for a player to make full use of it in order to build a backstory. So like, what do you think?
I'm in
sure
this
occasionally it wasn't even by me.
Yeah.
As like from the DM side, that's when I feel like George R. R. Martin, where I'm like, do not look behind the curtain. It's not there. Like,
Right.
Behind it either.
Yeah. It's there to cover, the empty void.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of theme lines here you don't want to look
under construction,
That's
you know. Yeah.
Our dad area.
You'll fall down the elevator shaft. There's no elevator there. You can't take that. I'm sorry.
So
But
from
yeah.
my it's weird because my DM for 6 or 7 years has been the same dude. It's been Kyle. So every time he's saying, "Hey John, I want to play a game. What are you playing? Because I know you're in." And I'll go, "A, yeah, how dare you? B, tell me everything. I want the deep lore. I want to know what the king had for breakfast. I want to know what the king's like favorite housemaid is and how many times they've procreated. I want to know the deep nitty gritty, and it makes it a lot easier for me to go, oh, so the king's wife's second husband's cousin is the baron of this place. So I want to know about that place. I'm going to make my character from there. And then it's probably going to either be something stupid or something edgy, but generally always connected. There's this interconnectivity, and I'm just waiting for all the characters that I have failed to show up in my games because I know he'll put them there.
That makes
Cool.
sense. I would say that like making, background and stuff is of relative importance to me. Some characters I'll pour a whole bunch into, some I won't. But usually I've gotten to a point now where I don't tend to put much beyond like some major kind of like milestone things, like where'd you grow up, like what'd you do in your formative years and why are you an adventurer now, kind of thing. I like daggers. I think that's a pretty good like system. Like get some people you're connected to, get some things you regret, some things you want for the future to kind of direct your character, and then develop the rest at the table. And then when it comes to working with the DM, I definitely work harder on that side of things than the individual concept. Sometimes I'll like have to do something more like, what John 2 up there is saying is kind of just like, okay, tell me everything, like literally all of it. Because I can't decide what I want until I know what's really available. And but other times I'll kind of do something similar to what John 1 is saying, where it's like, okay, I've kind of got this idea. Where do I need to compromise to, make this fit into your world? And, what can you kind of shift around to, make space for what I'm trying to do here, or something, if it's not already fit, if it doesn't already fit naturally, or if it doesn't already exist. So yeah, I try to do that. I feel it helps both people, it builds that rapport, kind of like what you were saying initially, like was the, you respond a little differently to a player who's coming after you about like, okay, where, who's the king and what's, like what's the court setup? How do, who do I report to if I'm in this organization, kind of thing. As a DM, I find that that's like encouraging, yeah, it's sort of like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I'll have to develop those things so that I can give you answers to these questions. But usually it's me just shitting something out in a response, and they're like, man, I can't believe how much detail you have in your world.
Right.
It's like, yep,
So how about yeah.
This has been sitting in a notebook for weeks. Yeah.
So how about changing your character to fit the party? Have you guys ever done that? Like discussed like a session 0, people have said something and you're like, oh, I can do something like for the chittering. Me and my friend Mike, heavy-handed healer, we decided to be like old men best friends. So we had been friends for like 30 years, living in a cabin by ourselves, smoking a bunch of devil's grass. And like I was the old like scholar and he was the old warrior. And so I would just like spend the days trying to get him to read stuff or edit my work or just generally bothering him, and he would spend the days berating me and calling me lazy and generally being correct. And so we had like a big backstory. Yeah, like we've like bounced off of each other quite a bit during sessions, and so it really helped bring a lot of fun interaction to the table. Have you guys ever done something like that, or is that important?
When it comes to my stuff, I don't want to make it sound like I'm a piece of shit, but at the same time,
You are.
I am pretty selfish with my characters. My character concepts I kind of keep close to my chest. It's an important thing when I want to go. Okay, I'm going to work on this concept. This is something maybe I've wanted to do, or this is maybe something that is just coming to my head when I'm hearing about the world, and it's I don't know. It's a little interesting. It happened a few times here and there, only because it was like, hey, we're putting a game together. We're all getting together right now to talk about characters, and I'll be like, okay, I'll work with the group. We'll come up with something together. But I think again, this goes back to fifth edition, where you don't need a healer, you don't need a tank
Right.
Right.
in every scenario.
Party comp's a little flexible. Or
It
a little more
is.
flexible, yeah.
Compared to when I played Pathfinder, and it's like, if you don't have a tank, you're dead by level 3.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Pathfinder.
Everyone plays some sort of like sword mage.
Yes, it's the best. What do you mean?
A party of clerics or a party of druids. That's what I want to. That's life goals right there.
Oh man,
The
That's
cleric
easy.
party.
That could
player
happen.
party, yeah, all with different gods.
Yeah, for sure.
You're all mission.
I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. I have recently come into a couple more like sort of tandem concepts, or like a focus on the group interaction, like sort of before the campaign starts, how people know each other, and I think it's fun. I don't think it's necessarily required, but I do think it helps a ton to sort of get over that whole suspension of disbelief with everybody's like, oh yeah, we kind of like just met in a tavern one time, and then we decided to hang out for the next like 8 years and save the world or whatever. Like there's a little bit that you get to go over. If it's like, oh yeah, but those two, they did work together in the past because they're both kind of shady dudes, and then this guy, he's done scouting stuff for the military unit that the fighter's in, and the bard is whatever, some noble visor guy that both those other guys are familiar with. And so maybe not everybody knows everybody, but there's nobody who's not connected at all. It tends to help when you're like, you don't have a situation where there's like one person who's left out every single time kind of thing as much.
It gets too fearful to talk.
Right.
They're like, oh, I'm going to interrupt roleplay between characters my character doesn't know, and I don't want to talk over
Right.
that. I don't want to be involved in that because it'd be, I don't want to put myself into it.
I think
Right.
you nailed it there. Fuck you, dude. Yeah. Fuck
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
we've known each other for years. I'm tired of your bullshit. I already know you're back.
Right.
Don't give me that garbage. And like, and that's, I think that helps. And then, you can sort of just jump in. You don't have to get over the whole, why do we hang out thing.
Right. Yep.
Best advice for a group starting D&D. If you and your friends are just getting into D&D, please just put your party in some rapport. Like have them know each other from something.
Yeah.
Because then you're never gonna like meet that circumstance where you're like, ooh, I don't want to talk to that guy. Look at him, fucking gross. He has horns and he smells weird.
Or end up with like, why are we still together? Why are we a group?
Everybody's
Like other than we're playing a game, that's why. And
then that's that works against
the meta glue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That works against like role playing sort of sometimes when you have to say, well, my character wouldn't have done this for the past 3 months in game, so you kind of just have to say, okay, yeah, he nods and follows along kind of thing or something like that. It's like, well, that sucks.
So going off of that, real quick before we go on break here, game selection. What do you guys look for in terms of like finding a game to play in? Do you really like to know people that you have like experience role playing with before, or do you like having like kind of a rotating group of new people to experience? I, as a DM and as a player, Well, as a DM, I like having people that I know, like role players that I trust more than as a player. As a player, I don't need to have people that I have interacted with before as much because I'm pretty confident in terms of my own like characters and stuff like that. So yeah, I really do like people that I've known and trusted for a long time.
I'm the same way. Again, it goes back to playing with the same DM and a pretty minute amount of players through the course of my time in D&D, and I've gone through good and bad, and I could fill your fucking brains with stories for hours and hours and hours upon how horrible some things were and then how great other things were. Which is, the bright side of that is that I have you guys, and you guys are fucking great to play with, and it's always a pleasure to come to the table knowing this is going to be fun no matter what happens, because these guys are also good and they also know what they're doing, and they're going to make this enjoyable for me, and I think I can make it enjoyable for them. It goes back again on another back to the selfishness where I'm going to be the one interacting. The DM can kind of be free in that, okay, they're interacting with everybody and they're kind of the neutral party. I have to be the guy who sides by the orc who decided to kill a whole village of people because he thought they were all, demons or something. I have to be the guy who has to talk to the elf who thinks everybody in the party is fuckable, and they're the bard, of course.
That's not where I thought that was going.
Yeah, it's cool. I liked where it ended up, though.
I sure didn't. But I want that safety net of knowing, okay, when I'm on my off game, these guys are going to carry it no matter what, and I'm still going to have a good time.
That makes sense. I would say that I generally tend toward groups of people that I know well, but I don't always. I don't. Like it's fun. It is. Yeah, I think what you said. The one shots are really fun with new people, and I usually like to do campaigns with people that I've played with in the past. It's just easier to work with people that kind of how they're gonna do stuff. I've been in campaigns with people I haven't played with before, and they occasionally it's gone really well. Sometimes it doesn't though, and it's it's easier to figure out who you work well with in a one shot rather than trying to do it in a campaign.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it's about 10:30 or 11:30, so we're going to take our 10-minute break, and we will be back for another 20 minutes. Yeah, if you want to play us out, John.
Sure.
Attention. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with lycanthropy, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Lycanthropy is a rare, uncontrolled animalis transformation linked with monster bite exposure. Exposure to monster bites in the mercenary, adventuring, questing, or mortuary industries may put you at risk. Please don't wait. Raven 1-800-99-RAR-RNG for a free legal consultation and a financial information scroll. Lycanthropy patients send a Raven now. 1-800-RAR-RNG.
Hey, everybody.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Welcome back, guys. Oh, wait, that's us.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we
got a question while we were on break from What Wallows. Any advice for someone who has never played with strangers? And we do, by gummit. We've got a lot of advice for strangers. Or people who haven't played with strangers, and you could probably be strangers as well. I guess
you're strangers to us.
Never played with strangers, right? Yeah.
Some of you not.
Maybe.
I want to begin with saying communication is paramount for any kind of interaction with people that you don't know very well. This is just kind of a life thing too. Is that I've always really stressed, especially at my table, is that if you don't know someone, communicate that. Put an effort in to communicate with them more so than someone that you've known for years and years and years. at the table or when you're interacting with them, like outside of the role playing circle, because that's really going to be the key to like resolving issues that you might have in the future. If you have a good like conversational rapport with them, and then you have a problem, it's much less awkward to come with them to them with that like problem than if you have to like build up some kind of rapport with them and then be like, oh yeah, by the way, I didn't like how your barbarian did that to my gnome. Like
Right.
that you crossed a line.
Why'd you
there,
throw
buddy.
me?
Why'd you throw me?
Why?
I didn't give consent to be thrown. So I think that's a really good first step is to like, you don't know someone, reach out and talk to them. Like just send them a DM every session, be like, hey, how you doing? Like what's up? And then you have a place to go if there is problems, or you can you have a place to go to like come up with things, come up with plans and stuff. That's my 2 cents.
There you go. John too.
It's difficult if you yourself haven't been in that sort of situation. I think the best approach, like Leg said, is involve them. Become involved in their character, It could be as simple as when you're discussing something with the group and they're kind of quiet, they're not really talking up much, they're not giving their opinion. You go, and what do you think, you person? I do that every game with everybody because I want everybody to have a shot, and I'm selfish, so it enriches my play. Moral of the story today is John's a selfish piece of shit.
Selfish role player.
But also, it really helps with inclusivity. You make people feel like, oh, they want to know my opinion, or at least he wants to know my opinion. You do that a few times, that character and that player is going to look at you every time they want to do something, or they want to make a decision, or if they want to propose an idea, they'll say, hey, Gork, that's my character name. I want to do this. And you're going to start building that trust, building that rapport. And that is key. Right. Inclusivity and rapport.
Having fun together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would say it's a lot like that. It's just you gotta feel out where the person is when at the table. That takes a session or two usually. But I always, like John too was saying, I always try, especially with newer players, to engage them in character, to kind of draw them into the direct role playing aspect of things. And just get them talking in first person, and I think if you can start there, then you end up with somebody who just feels more comfortable at the table, and then that's somebody that becomes a friend after a while if they're not when you sat down initially, which is like one of the coolest parts about this hobby is that you spend a bunch of hours together and you get to know people pretty well, if you didn't already, and I think it's tough to deal with new people, but the best thing you can do is try and be nice and make what you can as fun for everybody as possible. Make sure be as concerned about making sure everybody's having a good time as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And but that's it's tough to I don't know, feel comfortable in front of people that you don't already know. But I think the internet helps me a ton with that, because worst case scenario, if I feel too crazy, I can just like, okay, boop, I'm out.
You disappear forever.
Yeah,
and they're like,
your remote
guy
again.
Yeah.
But like, obviously that's less so in the Discord community environment now. But like, but I think it if you can start small, then it becomes easier to eventually start interacting with people on a regular level. Anxiety kills me, and it
Same.
It sucks, but it's marginal exposure is like the only way I've found that's effective to getting over that. It just
I have the anxiety level of a very friendly Labrador Retriever, so I don't suffer from that all that much.
I have the anxiety level of my dog who shits himself when there's a storm outside.
Oh
So-
no.
But we're both
Sounds good.
okay, so it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, everything's okay. We're good.
Thanks for
Oh,
the Waddle Waddles.
Yeah,
no,
that
I
was a really good
appreciate
one.
That was very good.
I'll
It
put
is,
another point on that as well. Just because
Yeah.
here I am. A thing that really helps me is session zeros.
Yes.
Anytime
Absolutely.
you have to when you're building a character with people, it's a group activity. You're all saying, "Oh, I like this. Oh, I like that." And again, back to inclusivity, you involve people when you're making characters with them. But at the same time, it's tremendously helpful when you all decide on characters together. You all have kind of a cohesive idea, and then the party kind of grows from there. And that works on so many levels. That helps people get into character. It helps new people kind of branch out into something maybe they haven't tried, or maybe learning to get with the rest of the group. Because it was the same with me. Like when Kyle brought me into Gods of Aether, I didn't know any of you people. I knew none of you, and I was like, I don't know if these are good people or these bad people. Kyle said they're good people. I don't know.
It's clearly lying.
Yeah, he was
Clearly.
lying. Of course, we're all pieces of shit.
Just your kind of piece of shit,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
but my sweet, close to the heart, loving piece of shit that you all are. And our session 0 in Gods of Aether was great because I got to know how you guys played, what you guys liked, what you guys kind of did, what was your niche in D&D, which absolutely exists. And it made me feel more at home, and I'd barely even met you guys, and here we are.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true. Playing with strangers. Look that one right over there.
Right. So that is an interesting point that we can like throw into real quick in the last 9 minutes here. What are your niches? Do you feel like as players? I kind of like to be the comic relief, but that's because, like I said, I'm a terrible player. So, what about you guys, John? What do you think?
My niche is always any character from a book I've read recently, which is a horrible cop out. But at the same time, most of the characters I read are the smooth talking Casanovas that I'm not. That I feel like generally my niche is the face. That's what I gravitate toward. I like to role play. I talk way too much in my daily life, so why not just translate that over to what I'm playing?
Right. Yeah.
And even going back to playing with a group you've never played before or played with before, there's always a need for a face. There's always a time where you can go, okay, everyone else doesn't either. They don't seem like they role play a lot, or they're just getting into it. But I feel like now that I've written this 16-page backstory that Kyle has to slog through on the toilet 3 days from now, I'm going to be a little bit more ingrained in the story so I can talk a bit more because I'll know a bit more.
That makes sense. I would say that I agree with a lot of those like those points as well. Like it helps a ton to I don't know, yeah, just get yourself ingrained in it, I guess, yeah. John won though, I suppose. I was trying to jump ahead of you. I'll wait my turn.
Friends, so we talk over each other.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right.
A lot.
I just
Gotcha. So I would say that like I guess like the session 0 is like really helpful for me so that I can figure out what is I tend to try and play into what is the most useful role for the party, kind of. Obviously in 5e that's less critical. And if there's like a concept that I've got in mind, then but my niche like is gonna be somebody who talks a bit, but I don't tend to be the face of a party. I don't know. I'm not sure that I have a ton of like it's gonna be a sarcastic smartass somehow or another. Because I, and make too many dumb puns, but those are about the only like consistent bits I can say for sure I know would be in that. But I try real hard to avoid too many, like, typecasting myself, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, go on, Bex.
I was gonna say you play pretty thoughtful characters. That'd be
That's probably true. I'm definitely a planner. That's something I do regardless. I like it's
even with Clem,
Yeah.
who's like kind of like you know, he
Giant
he's dumb as
doofus.
hell.
like
Like,
he's doofus genius. You know what I mean?
yeah, like he's an idiot, but he's still got a plan.
Exactly.
How many traps have you triggered now?
Oh man, he's
2
our rogue.
in 3
It's
sessions.
fine. We don't have a rogue, so we need someone to go through traps.
To
We
roll
gotta-
into the
You
traps,
Yeah,
it's
we got
perfect.
Bugbear.
Like, yeah.
We don't need a rogue. We got a
Yeah.
bugbear.
Just roll him into that doorway. He'll
It's
be
okay.
fine.
I'm gonna check it.
Danger
Oh.
cease,
Gotten
dude.
us
He's
so,
good.
gotten us
He's
through so
good.
far. Yeah. What are the odds? Somebody else is gonna put a fireball in a box, right? Yeah. No,
Not 2
it
people
never
in a row.
happens. It's who does that?
Redundant.
Right. But I suppose that's we're right about at the
Yeah.
time here. We can
Thanks,
probably
guys,
call
for
that.
tuning in.
You want to carry us out here, Leg, or
Yeah, sure.
do it?
Well, thank you guys very much for tuning in to another Thursday edition of Table 13. Like we said, if you are interested in joining our community, the Rational Radio Discord link has been posted multiple times in chat. You can find it down below. We do multiple streams on a bi-weekly schedule, as well as run reruns a lot of times during the weekends and Mondays, something like that. You can check our stream schedule to find it out, more information. I don't have
Sunday.
it memorized.
Sunday,
yeah,
and
there you go.
ahead of
Eric's the one that runs those.
Yeah, ahead of the streams that are running. So it'll be Monday nights, starting at 6:30 or 6 or 6:30, depending on how long the session for Gods of Aether was. Ahead of the normal start time for Gods of Aether, and then we'll roll another one at 9 on the nights that we're not streaming, like this coming Monday. On Sundays there's a whole big 6-hour block usually that'll roll, and starting at noon and then start over at 6. But that's reruns for the most part. I think that's all of them.
Yeah. We also have a podcast, Dragon's Parallel. You can find that on stream or on Spotify, as well as Podbean or iTunes and any other podcast hosting services. And if you like us and want to support us, we got a Patreon as well as a merch store online on our website at rationalrad.io. So check us out, buy a sweatshirt,
Sweet
support
stuff.
our community. And we will see you guys in another week. Catch you later. Stay safe.
For stopping by.
Bye, guys.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a
yes.
fucking mask. Next week we're interviewing Cassie Roll. That's right.
Yes.
We're doing that. Be
Yep.
there. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Can't wait. Good night, guys.
Bye, everybody.